Hello and welcome back to Continuous Integration using Jenkins from Edureka. In this video, we are going to talk about Jenkins plugins and their usage. Now, after this module, you should be able to get the understanding of below topics. So first of all, you will understand how exactly we can work with Jenkins plugins. There will be an introduction. Then how to add a plugin, how to delete a plugin. Then what are the commonly used plugins in Jenkins, which we use on a daily basis if you're working with Jenkins. Then we will talk about configuring Jenkins to work with Java, Git, and Maven. Then we will configure Jenkins to check for source code changes periodically. And then in the process, we will learn how to trigger the Jenkins jobs in different ways, how to work with the source code management tools, especially Git. And then finally, we will work with Maven build jobs. And in fact, we will have a demo on how to create a Maven job and how to configure Git as a source code management tool. And then finally, how to create a Java project using Maven build, Git as a source code repository, and how to create a continuous integration pipeline with that. So the first section is to understand about Jenkins plugins, what exactly they are and why do we use them. So as we have spoken before, Jenkins is one of the best open source tools to fasten the development cycle. It really helps in increasing the team productivity with continuous integration. And we have already seen the concept of continuous integration, how exactly it helps the software development lifecycle. And just to brush up the memory, the main concept of continuous integration is that every developer in your team should be committing and pushing the code multiple times in a single day. And then each commit or each push will actually trigger the multiple set of automated tests. And based on those test results, the code will either move forward in the value chain or it will send back the feedback to the developers and other stakeholders. Now, in the development phase, the changes has to be tested much more frequently and it can get rid of all manual steps overhead. So what happens is, since when you are developing a software, you have to test your changes on a pretty regular basis. So every time you write small piece of code, let's say 10, 15, 20 or 100 lines, and especially when if it is a meaningful change, you would like to test it, how exactly it is behaving with the overall software or with the overall package. And you want to run unit tests, you want to run integration tests, you want to run regression tests to understand your code is not messing up with the existing code. It is not altering the behavior and it is actually behaving in the desired way, how it should have been behaving as per your requirement. So what happens is, as we have spoken, Jenkins is something which is based on the pluggable architecture, as we call it. And you have plugins for virtually everything. You want to work with Git, you have a plugin. You want to work with Docker, you have a plugin. You want to work with, let's say, Puppet, Chef, Ansible, any of these tools. Let's say you want to use Kubernetes as your one of the tools to work with. You want to work with Selenium. You want to work with some deployment tools like Octopus Deploy or Urban Code Deploy. So for all these tools, when you want to integrate with Jenkins, you have respective plugins to work with. So you install the plugin, you make some configuration changes, and you are good to go. And in very similar fashion, or in as easy as it is to remove the plugin as well. Let's say you have used a plugin and you don't need it anymore. So you can just go ahead and remove the plugin from the Jenkins master. And again, you are good to start with. So it helps you in managing the Jenkins space. It helps you in keeping your Jenkins master very lean. And you keep only the things which are required and you remove the things which are not needed on your Jenkins master. So that's the kind of depiction that when you put the plugins with Jenkins, your Jenkins becomes much more powerful. So again, plugin installation is extremely easy in Jenkins, as you can see here, and we will have a small demo on this as well. You just go to Manage Plugins section of your Manage Jenkins section. There you can actually either use the GUI or you can use the Jenkins CLI as well. So when you go to the Manage Plugin view, you will have 4 different tabs: Updates, Available, Installed, and Advanced, and you can use any one of them. And most of them are actually self-explanatory. As you can expect, Available will show you all the available plugins which you can go ahead and install. And installation is as easy as putting a check mark against that plugin and then click on either Install Without Restart, or you can click on Download Now and Install After Restart, depending on whether the plugin installation requires a restart of the Jenkins server or not. Similarly, Installed tab will show you all the installed plugins, as you can expect. Updates tab will show you all the plugins which are already installed on the system and for which there is an update available. Advanced will work with the custom plugins. So let's say you have a plugin which you have written yourself in Java. And as you know, like .hpi is the extension which you can use to work with Jenkins. So .hpi or .jpi are the common extensions for Jenkins plugins if you are writing your own Jenkins plugins. And you just go to advanced section, import the plugin, and then you're good to work with. CLI installation is again extremely easy. You use the Jenkins CLI for that purpose, and you just need to mention where exactly your Jenkins master is. So basically localhost :8080 if you are on Jenkins master locally. If you're somewhere else, you just need to replace localhost with the IP address :8080. Then you mention the install-plugin keyword, and then you mention the source where exactly the file for plugin is located. You typically download the HPI plugin and then you put it there. Most of the times you'll be using Web UI to install the plugin, install and uninstall. Most of the operations you can perform with the Web UI. If you're not using the Web UI, Jenkins CLI is an equally easy option to do with. So it basically provides you a command line to download a plugin and its dependencies, and it is available only to Jenkins administrators typically. So even the Web UI, when you harden your Jenkins master, you typically remove the access for normal users and you keep the Manage Jenkins option only for the Jenkins administrators. As we have spoken, removing a plugin is again as easy as installing it. So it is always good to remove the plugins from Jenkins master when it is no longer used. And this of course helps in reducing the memory overhead at boot or runtime, reducing configuration options, because every plugin will add some or the other option to your configuration page. So the more number of plugins will actually add more options. This might confuse you. So if you don't need a plugin at all, it's always a best practice to remove that plugin so that it doesn't clutter your Web UI for the configuration page of Jenkins. So it also removes any kind of potential future conflicts with any new plugin updates or anything. So you don't unnecessarily have to keep the plugin and maintain the plugin. The maintenance part is taken away. So it's much better and much more recommended to remove a plugin if you're not using it. Because any which ways, let's say after a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you want to use the plugin again. It's just a matter of again some clicks and you get the plugin immediately again, not a problem. So to uninstall a plugin, you just need to navigate to Installed tab on the Manage Plugins section. We just saw that one of the screenshots in one of the previous slides, and we will take a look at when we are seeing the demo for it. And from there, Jenkins will automatically determine which plugins are safe to uninstall. You will find there on the UI that some of the plugins you get the options to uninstall, and for some plugins you do not get that option to uninstall. It is grayed out actually. That's majorly because of two reasons. The first reason is that it is one of the default plugins and Jenkins thinks that this plugin has to be there for some or the other purpose. And the second thing is this plugin is a dependency for some other plugin, because plugins also have this dependency hierarchy. So there is a possibility that this plugin is a dependency for some other plugin which you are not removing. So in order for that other plugin to work, you need to have this plugin installed. So in those situations, that uninstall button will be grayed out. It will not be functioning for you. And one of the alternate ways to uninstall this plugin, just go to the Jenkins home plugin directory on your Jenkins master and just go ahead and remove that .hpi file. It will actually simply remove. So after that, the only thing which is remaining is once you delete that .hpi file, it's just a matter of restarting your Jenkins master. And once you do that, that plugin will not be visible anywhere on your console. But most of the times, it's actually preferable to remove from the GUI because you know what you're doing, and sometimes the chances of making a mistake on the command line is more. Let's say if you have removed a different HPI file which corresponds to a different plugin, it might kind of break your Jenkins master configuration. So you should be very careful when you're using the command line when you're removing a .hpi file. So uninstallation, important thing to remember that uninstallation does not remove the configuration that the plugin may have created. So if there is any additional configuration which was done, if there was any cache update, if there was anything in the global tools configuration, so those things will remain there. You need to actually do it manually if you want to clean up your Jenkins master. And yes, Jenkins does provide you a way to work with that. So what you can do is Jenkins provides a way to remove the configuration left behind by the uninstalled plugins. So you just need to go to Manage Jenkins again and go to the Manage Old Data section. And then you can just go ahead and remove all the unnecessary files from there. That will take care of the old configuration file which you no longer need to keep on your server. So that way you can clean up and make more space on the server. So this is again one of these screenshots, as you can see. This is from the Jenkins, Manage Jenkins. Then you go to Plugins Manager and there you have all the plugins listed. So in this case, if you see the Install tab is highlighted, and if you just select this Build Timeout, this is the uninstall is visible and you can actually click on Uninstall. For the other options, if you see here, uninstall is grayed out. So that would mean that you cannot remove these plugins because either, as I said, this is like default plugins or they have a dependency. They are actually dependency to some other plugins. There is one other way working with plugins. Let's say you don't want to remove plugin completely. So one of the ways of doing that would be to disable a plugin. What it will do is that it's actually one of the best ways to retire a plugin. Jenkins will continue to recognize that the plugin is installed, but it will not start the plugin at boot time. So that way you will be able to save some memory space on Jenkins. It will not basically initiate the plugin. So it is there. It's just a couple of files which are visible or which are taking some space on your Jenkins master. Other than that, it is not disturbing any of your other Jenkins configuration which you might have. And to disable a plugin, you just need to uncheck the box on the installed tab of the manage plugins page. This can be done again only by the Jenkins administrator. So most of these operations which you are performing under manage Jenkins section is typically done by the Jenkins administrator. And the configurations created by the disabled plugin behaves similar to the plugin uninstalled. So what it means is that even in this case, when you disable a plugin, you still have any stale data, any old data which is pertaining to this plugin will remain there unless you go ahead and delete them manually. So again, the best way would be to go to the manage old data section and get rid of the data which is not needed anymore. So this is the tick we were talking about. So if you click on uninstall, it will remove the plugin from your machine. And if you just uncheck this blue box, it will actually do not uninstall the plugin, but it will disable the plugin on your Jenkins master. So what happens is it will be actually available for you. The installation will not be removed. So later on, let's say a couple of weeks down the line, if you want to use the plugin again, you just need to put a check mark again and it will simply reinitiate plugin for you. But keep in mind, for any of these operations or most of these things actually take effect when you restart your Jenkins master. So for most of these operations, in fact, just a couple of installation of plugins will not need a Jenkins restart. But other than that, anything with regards to uninstallation or disabling a plugin will actually need a Jenkins server restart. So before we move to this commonly used plugins section, where we will take a look at some of the most commonly used plugins available to us and which we can use and which we will use on a daily basis, let's have a quick demo on installation and uninstallation of Jenkins plugins. So here I am on one of my Jenkins master servers. What we are interested in is this Manage Jenkins tab, if you see here. So what I need to do is I just need to click on this Manage Jenkins. This will take me to all the configuration related things, options available on Jenkins. So this you can think of as kind of Windows. In Windows, the way you have control panel, it's pretty similar to that. Anything with regards to Jenkins master configuration, which you need to do, which you need to manipulate, you need to come at this page. And what we are interested in now is this Manage Plugins section. As you can see here, it tells me that what you can do with this is add, remove, disable, or enable plugins that can extend the functionality of Jenkins. That is what you can do with it. Of course, as you can see in my case, some of the updates are already available for some of my installed plugins. So if I click on this link, the first tab which highlights is updates. It tells me that I have 2 installations or 2 plugins for which I have updates available. And if you see on your right hand side, it actually shows the installed version. So if you see the SCM API, the first plugin, the installed version is 2.2.7 and the version which is available for update is 2.3.0. Similarly, I have this workspace cleanup plugin and the installed version is 0.34 and the updated version or the version which I can update to is 0.36. So all I need to do is just click on download now and install after restart. And as you can see here, once I do that, it simply tells me that downloaded successfully. Maybe it was a very small plugin, so it happened immediately. It tells me that for both of them, download has been successfully completed. It will be activated during the next boot. So what I need to do is I just need to go ahead and restart my Jenkins server. So what I can do is I can simply go ahead and put a check mark over here, which will actually take care of the restart. So as you can see here, it says restarting Jenkins. So this page will keep on coming here. What I need to do is if I do a refresh here, so it is telling me at the moment it is not reachable. So as you can see here, it tells me now that Jenkins is getting ready to work. It tells me further updates are available. So it has refreshed. Those updates are gone. The one which were showing previously, SCM API in the other one. Now I have 4 different plugins for which I have an update available. So I just need to put a check mark over here and click on download now and install after restart. That's all I need to do. I can just click over here and just click on download now and install after restart. What we're interested in at the moment, if I go to installed plugin section, it will show me all the plugins which are available and installed already. As you can see here, for all the plugins, you have different options available. So if you see, for some of them, downgrade option is coming. So at times Jenkins This is one of the very common problems where you have the dependency or the one Jenkins plugin is not compliant with a specific version of the other plugin. So in those situations, you need to make sure that the correct plugin is available and correct plugin is installed to work with. So you can use this downgrade to 2.6.16.2 option. So any is version, so you can see which version it will be downgraded to. So for example, if you see here, credentials plugin 2.1.18 is the installed plugin, and I have an option to downgrade this to 2.1.16. One more important thing to notice is that I don't have the uninstall option for this plugin. As you can see, if I hover my mouse on this one, it tells me that this plugin cannot be uninstalled, and it shows me the dependent plugins. So all these plugins which you see in this box, like credentials binding plugin, declarative extension points API, GitHub plugin, declarative pipeline plugin, so Git client plugin. So all these plugins are actually dependent on credentials plugin. So if I remove this, about 12 or 15 plugins will go for a toss. That's the reason Jenkins is smart enough to not to give me this option of uninstalling. And at the same time, if you see, it doesn't give me an option to disable the plugin as well. And again, the same option, this plugin cannot be disabled. It has one or more enabled dependents. So in order to work or in order to either disable or uninstall credentials plugin, you first need to make sure that any of these listed plugins which you see here on a screen are not there. They are either uninstalled or they are disabled. Only then you will be getting this option of disabling or uninstalling credentials plugin. But yes, you do have some options. So in this case, if you see build pipeline plugin, I have an option of uninstalling. I have an option of disabling this. Similarly, email extension plugin, I can either install or disable. Gradle plugin, which is one of the build tools for Java based projects. So I have Maven and Gradle. These are the three most commonly used Java build tools. So for Gradle, I have an option of again disabling and uninstalling both. Let's take a situation and see how do we do an installation or uninstallation of a plugin. So as you can expect, available tab will show me all the plugins which are available for me to be installed on this Jenkins master. And as you can see that what has been done is Jenkins makes your task easier. It actually categorizes the plugins in various categories. So if you see, all the plugins with regards to .NET development are categorized together. So if you see MS Build, MS Test, Enant, PowerShell, Visual Studio Code Metrics, all these things which are actually used heavily in any of the .NET based projects, they are all categorized together for your easy consumption. Similarly, you can see if you go scroll down, you have Android development related plugins. So all these Xamarin, AWS Device, Fabric Beta, Google Cloud Messaging. So all these tools which are actually used for the Android developers for any kind of Android app development, all these are together in a single place for easy consumption. Anything with regards to artifact uploader. So you have Artifactory, Nessus, all those plugins. You can actually utilize this plugins to work with those. So you have multiple plugins to work with here. As you can see, you have a hell lot of options. So in Jenkins, you will find most of the tools which are commercially available. Any DevOps related tool which are commercially available, I have seen that most of the times you will find the plugins for those. So again, the list is pretty long. As you can see, we have more than 1,000 plugins, so we can't check out each and every one. So again, scrolling up and down to the list is pretty long. As you can see here, this is all the plugins related to build reports. So you can use Bitbucket Approve, you can use JDepend, you can use App Dynamics Dashboard, you can use Build Metrics. So you have multiple types of plugins for build as well. Now, let's say you want to work with a specific type of plugin. So you don't have to scroll like this. That's not required actually. What you can do, you can go to this filter tab and you can search. You can put the keyword over there for you to search. So let's say I want to check all the plugins with regards to AWS. So if you see here, I am getting all the plugins with wherever either it's in the name or it's in the description. Whatever keyword I type over here, it will be either available in the name of the plugin, which is this hyperlink, or it will be there in the description of the plugin. If you see here, in the first example, it is there in both. The name is AWS-device-farm, and the description tells that this plugin schedules test runs on AWS device farm. So any one of them, if it is available, the keyword which you are putting in, it will actually show you the plugin listed. Now, one of the very common problems which people face. So let's say I search for Docker. So again, if you see here, I have a number of plugins as a result for me. If you see here, in some of the cases, if you see the first result starts Windocs container, it doesn't give the Docker as one of the options or one of the keywords in the name, but the Docker keyword is available in actually the description part of this plugin. So any one of them it will have. So now let's say I'm pretty confused now. I don't know which Docker plugin is serving my purpose. I don't know which one I want to use. So let's say I want to use plugin with Docker on Azure. So now if you see here, I have Docker and Azure somewhere. If you see at the middle, you have Azure Container Service and you have Azure IoT Edge. So again, I have a confusion between these two. Which one should I be using? So what I need to do, I just go ahead and right click and open the link in new tab, and I'll do this one for it as well as for IoT Edge. What it will do, the next page which opens up is actually this description page of plugin which we are talking about. And in this case, if you see, it just tells me a couple of informations, how many times it has been installed. It is a hyperlink for the GitHub page as well. Most of these plugins are open source. You can go to GitHub and check out the details. Who is the maintainers? You can have one maintainer or multiple maintainers for any of these plugins. And it lists the dependencies as well. If this plugin is dependent on any of the other plugins, it lists those ones over here. Now, in this page, you have less information, probably because this is a new plugin, maybe. In this case, if you see here, you have a lot more information. So Azure Container Service, once again, you have 492 installs already for this plugin. Latest release was 7 months ago. And if you see here, it tells me that which Jenkins version it requires. So this particular plugin will need Jenkins 1.651 or higher. It will not work on anything below 1.6. So if your Jenkins version is, let's say 1.2, 1.3, you cannot use this plugin. Similarly, the maintainer is Azure DevOps team. So as you can see here, so basically Microsoft is maintaining this plugin. So this is one of the reasons also, I mean, probably you can trust this a lot more. So you have typically two types of plugins. One is community based and one is given by the respective vendors. So in this case, as you can see, this plugin is given to you by Microsoft. So if let's say you go back to the page again and let's search for, or over here itself, if I go and check something, Amazon ECR plugins. So if I go and check out the description for this one, it doesn't say that Amazon is the owner or the maintainer for this plugin, but most probably these two guys are somehow related to, so they might be working for Amazon or they might be MVPs for them, something like that. So the same types of information, what are the dependencies, maintainers, installs, what is the minimum Jenkins version, and all those things. So now coming back to the initial plugin which I was talking about. So this is Azure Container Service. It not only gives you all this information, it actually gives you the description as well. So this plugin is, if you see here, a Jenkins plugin to deploy configurations to Azure Container Service. So with the help of this plugin, you can put your workload, you can deploy your workload onto container services on Azure. Further, it tells it also supports deployment to the legacy Azure Container Service with the following orchestrator. So if you're using Kubernetes on Azure, if you're using DCOS, which is nothing but Mesos on Azure, or if you're using Docker Swarm on Azure. So again, for all of them, you can take help of this plugin and it will help you deploy your production workload on these environments. So as you can see, you can get all the information about this plugin. In fact, some of the how to configure the plugin as well, because as you remember, there are two aspects. So one is that you have to install the plugin, then you have to configure the plugin as well. So all these information you will get here, the very good documentation for most of them. Not only that, in fact, you see the change log as well. You see common bugs as well. If there is any kind of a known issue, it will be listed over here. In this case, we don't have any known issues probably. So that is the reason it is not listed here. If it is there, you can find it. It will be mentioned under the known issues section. So basically you get all the information. So now it is much easier to decide which plugin I want to install. So let's say I have read the documentation for all these three plugins. As you can see here, this is also Azure, but this is more specific to IoT Edge solution on Jenkins, which looks like it is one of the Azure services provided to you. So if you are working on Azure IoT Edge, you should be probably going ahead with this plugin. In our case, we are more interested in putting things on Docker, let's say, just for example's sake. So probably I'll go ahead and install this particular plugin. So now I have understood the documentation, I have read the documentation, and I have understood which plugin should be serving my purpose. So I just go ahead and close these tabs. I go back to my main Jenkins page. And let's say I just put a check mark over here. There might be situations that even after reading the documentation, you're not really sure that which plugin is going to serve your purpose. It might be so close. There is a lot of overlap between the two plugins, let's say, for this example's sake. In those situations, the only option or the last option would be to go ahead and install those plugins in two different Jenkins test environments. As we have seen already, it's very easy to install and work with Jenkins master. So you install two different Jenkins on two different hosts, install these two plugins on respective two different hosts and see their behavior. So that will be more like trial and error basis. So you see, you work with them and you see which one is serving more towards your requirements. And then you take a decision. But in most of the situations, in most of the cases, Once you go through the documentation, you will understand which one is serving your purpose and which plugin should you go ahead and install. So let's say I have decided and I want to work with Azure Container Service. So I just put a check mark over here. I go ahead and click on install without restart. And again, you can safely do that, because what happens is if there is any kind of dependency, again, as you can see here, Azure Container Service is the one which I was installing, but as part of the dependencies, it is installing Azure Commons, Kubernetes Continuous Deploy, and Azure Credentials as well. I did not mention these plugins, but since these are dependencies to Azure Container Service, it's actually going ahead and installing. So if I just go open the page again, if you see here, these are the dependencies for Azure Container Service. So probably JDK tool and command agent launcher and bounty castle is already installed. So it's going ahead only with the first 3 dependencies. So the first one has been installed. Second one is also done. Third one should start pretty soon. So once the installation is complete, it will go ahead and install the actual plugin. And in this case, as you can see here, it tells me actually that you can start using the plugin right away, because these plugins actually do not require a restart. So once we install, we should start getting those options in our configuration page as well, which we will take a look at. So as you can see, the installation part is complete. I go back to dashboard. Let's say if I click on a new item, let's say I give this name as Azure. Let's make it freestyle project. Click on OK. So as you can see now, there is no change at the moment. However, if I click on add build step, I should get a couple of things. So if you see here, I am getting this option deploy to Azure Container Service, deploy to Kubernetes. These 2 options were not available before those plugins installation, but now they are available to me. Now in very similar fashion, let's take a look at how do we uninstall a plugin. So I again go to manage Jenkins, go to manage plugins. So of course this time those plugins will not be part of the available plugin section. It will rather be under the installed plugin section. As you can see here, Azure Container Service plugin I can disable and uninstall, but I cannot disable and uninstall Azure Credentials plugin and also Azure Commons plugin, because these 2 are dependencies for Azure Container Service plugin. So if I uninstall it now, yes, I am sure about it, I can go ahead and uninstall it. So now if you see here, Azure Credentials is giving me this option. This one has gone actually. It doesn't give you the disable option. The whole checkbox is gone, because if you see on your extreme right, it tells me uninstallation pending. Now that is coming because for any kind of uninstallation, I have to basically restart my Jenkins server. However, one thing which is visible now, as you can see, Azure Credentials now gives me options to disable and uninstall. So let's uninstall that as well. So yes, I want to uninstall, and in turn, so for both of them, as you see here, I have this uninstallation pending options available. What I need to do is, as of now, I don't need to restart, but yes, the moment I restart, all those options will be gone. Even now, if I go to my configuration page for any of the jobs basically, because these options will be available to all the jobs, not just Azure, any job which I create or any existing job if I open, I can still see deploy to Azure Container Service, deploy to Kubernetes. What I can do is I can simply, let's leave from here. So what I need to do is I can just go ahead and put this check mark, restart Jenkins when installation is complete and no jobs are running. So if I go ahead and select this option, as you can see again, restarting Jenkins is running. If I do a refresh, it will tell me that Jenkins is restarting. So as you can see now, it has come back. If I go to my Jenkins dashboard, let's take a look at the configuration page for Azure. Let's click on configure. This time I click on add build step, and as you can see, that option of Azure is gone already. I do not get the option of deploy to Azure anymore. I'm still getting deploy to Kubernetes option, but yes, I can actually go ahead and uninstall that plugin as well. And then this option will also go away. So that's how you install and uninstall a plugin. That's how you manage your plugins within Jenkins. So the next is commonly used plugin. So now we will talk about some of the plugins which we will be using almost in every Jenkins installation. So the first and foremost is the GitHub plugin. And as you can expect, this plugin integrates Jenkins with GitHub projects. So you can use this plugin, and Jenkins can easily clone the source code from any Git repository. That is the main purpose of this plugin. It can also be used to automatically trigger each build on Jenkins server after each commit in the repository has been pushed. So basically you create an automated pipeline where anybody or any of the developers, when they commit a push, when they commit a code or when they push a code on the source code repository, it will automatically trigger the Jenkins job to be built and to be completed. You don't have to manually go to the Jenkins page and click on build now to get things done. Next in the list is HTML Publisher plugin. So this plugin basically publishes the HTML report generated by the Jenkins build. So you can have a text report, you can have a CSV report. HTML reports will look a lot better and they will be good to share with the stakeholders, especially the management and senior folks if you have anybody to be report to. So this is a very good plugin to do those kinds of formatting and kind of pleasing to the eyes report generation. And the HTML reports generated can be viewed using the links in the dashboard. So you can actually directly put the link and you can just click on the link and you can see how your report will look like when it goes to the end user or the stakeholders. Copy artifact plugin. This will help you in copying the artifacts from another project. So let's say you have an artifact which you want to use as an kind of input to a new project. Then you can use this copy artifact plugin. And this will basically allows to specify from which build artifact has to be copied. And again, the copying process, it can be controlled by filtering the files to be copied, specifying the destination directory, etc. etc. Next, you have extended choice parameter plugin. So this one we will take a look at when we are talking about parameterized builds. So what happens is it actually extends the choice parameter and gives you more functionality to choice parameter plugin. Parameterized builds are basically a way to provide inputs to your Jenkins job at runtime. What you do is it's more like hard coding values in your code or using variables in your code. This puts a way, or this gives you a way to define the inputs as variables, and then those variable initialization you can do at the start of every Jenkins job. And again, build with parameter plugin. This is again related to the first one. So this plugin actually lets the user to provide the parameterized builds. So you can provide the parameters to the build. It will actually prompt you to put those values in the box or use a drop down. So you have multiple ways to working with these parameters when we are working with parameterized builds. So this plugin is basically helpful. It helps you in creating a list of jobs with parameters to trigger ahead of time and execute it at some time in future. Now, just the installation of plugin is not sufficient. You have to do some configuration of these plugins as well. Again, for each plugin, you have different things to mention or different sections to be filled, but most of them are self-explanatory. So let's say when you are working with GitHub plugin, and for most of these plugins, you actually go to the configure system option in manage Jenkins. So for GitHub, you go to manage Jenkins, then go to configure system, and then you under GitHub section, you choose add GitHub server. There will be a button which will help you choose that, as you can see here in the screenshot. Once you do that, it will ask you to put the credentials. So basically it is asking you the credentials for your GitHub account through which it can actually connect to your GitHub server or GitHub account and then download the source code repository. That way, you don't have to mention your credentials in the main Jenkins job. This will be like if you have your own repository with which you're working most of the times, you can actually put this credentials one time and then you can use it for any of your subsequent jobs creation and jobs build. So once you have configured the credentials, it's just a matter of navigating to your Jenkins project and set the project URL. You just give the URL as your GitHub repository, and under the source code management, check Git and set the repository URL to point to your GitHub repository. That's all you need to do. And once you do that, under the build triggers section, you need to select build when a change is pushed to GitHub. And once you do that, just select that checkbox or put a check mark in the checkbox and you're done there. This is how it looks like in the build triggers section. Now, once you do that, this is the configuration done on your Jenkins master or the Jenkins server. You also need to do a small change on your actual GitHub repository as well. So there you need to go to GitHub repository, your respective repository, go to settings, go to integrations and services. Once you go there, you need to click on add service and add Jenkins GitHub plugin. That's what you need to do. And once done, this is how it will look like on a screen. And you just click on Jenkins Git plugin. Once you do that, and again, you just need to mention the Jenkins URL. We will talk about this in a bit when we are automating our Jenkins job. So you get this webhook. You put this URL as the webhook inside GitHub. And this is how it looks like. So if you see here, localhost :8080 GitHub webhook. Localhost you will replace with the actual Jenkins URL. And make sure you don't forget this :8080 because that is where your Jenkins master is listening to you. Once you do that, just click on update service and you're good to go. So what this will achieve is that it will create an automated pipeline. So what happens once you have done this? Anytime, whenever you push any changes to your GitHub repository, GitHub will automatically trigger the job. So this is like automated. For every push or every commit, you will trigger the job. So this is one of the ways you can actually do this with the help of webhooks as well, which we will take a look at as well. In similar fashion, you have this configure HTML publisher plugin. So again, once you have done that, once you have installed the HTML Publisher plugin, you will be able to see that under the post build actions, and you will get this option called Publish HTML Reports. Once you do that, you get these options to be filled in. So what do you want the index page to be, where your HTML directory would be, and all those things. What is the report title? All these things you can actually mention to Jenkins. So you click on Configure. Under the post build action, you look for the Publish HTML Reports option and select, and just fill in all the details which you see on the screen now. That's all you need to do. Next is Configure Copy Artifact plugin. So in this case, you select the configure option for the project again, and under the build option, you need to look for the copy artifact from another project. So remember one thing, when you install the plugin, you are not telling Jenkins which should go where, but Jenkins is smart enough to understand that which one should be one of the options of build option and which one should be post build option. So of course, anything with regards to Maven, Gradle, and or MS Build, or we use that Azure Container Service. So all these things are by default going to the build options. And whenever you talk about HTML Publisher plugin or any kind of email notification, Slack notifications, all these things will go to your post build actions. So Jenkins is smart enough to do that. You don't need to worry. So once the plugin is installed, you just need to go to that respective section and it will be auto-populated under dropdown. And this is how it will look like. So when you talk about copy artifact, you give the project name, you tell what has to be copied, which build, what are the artifacts to copy. If you have any kind of exception which you don't want to be copied, you can put that in artifacts not to copy section. You can put the target directory as well. So you can mention where those artifacts should be saved. So, and finally, we will take a look at how to create or how to configure a Java project on Jenkins, which will use Git as a source code repository tool and which will use Maven as the build tool for us. So Maven is actually one of the most popular tools out there when it comes to Java-based development. And again, it's very easy when you have installed all these things. Maven, again, it comes by default. It is one of the default plugins when it comes to Jenkins. And you can just go ahead and click on Global Tool Configuration to see the configuration for Maven. Not only Maven, it will actually show you all the details with regards to Maven, Git, and JDK as well. So these are the options you can see, and all these options are available under Global Tool Configuration. So what you need to do now is just go ahead and click on respective sections. And once you do that, you can put all the details about JDK, where to find it, what to do with it. Similarly for Git and for Maven as well. So basically you just need to set the path for all these details, where to find these details on the machine. That's all you need to do. Let's take a look at one by one for all these three options. So first of all is JDK. So when you go there, just click on Add JDK. Let me bring the screen. So click on Add JDK, you fill in the name, which can be anything. And then if you see, you have this Java_home option where you need to mention where exactly your JDK path is located. So that is there on the Jenkins master, which you're talking about. And let's say, again, we have not spoken yet, but when we talk about Jenkins slave configuration or Jenkins build slave. So if you're using a Jenkins slave, then this configuration has to be done on Jenkins slave as well. So basically this path should be present on Jenkins slave. So this is your Jenkins master, and the path which is showing under this Java_home should be available on your Jenkins master, wherever you have installed Jenkins. For Git, again, not so much complication is required. You just click on Git and you just give the name. Typically, you don't need to put the path for Git because Git is already executable. It has been made. So you don't need to give the exact path to Git. You just type the Git, and since it is executable binary, it will take it automatically. And last, we have this Maven configuration. So once again, you just need to mention the name. Name can be anything, whatever you provide. This is provided by the user. And the Maven_home value you need to provide if you have installed Maven on your local machine. You also have an option of clicking this link which says install automatically. So what will happen is Jenkins will do the heavy lifting for you, and it will go ahead and install Maven for you if needed. So let's go ahead and do that. So of course, by default, install automatically will be checked. If the Maven is installed, then uncheck the box and set the Maven path. If it is not installed, then you just go ahead and put the checkbox and it will take care of the rest automatically. So before we dive into the next section, let's take a look at how and where all these configurations are done and where exactly these things are located. So here I am on my Jenkins master, and if I go to manage Jenkins, as I said, Git and Maven are two of the default plugins, so they will be installed by default. What we need to make sure is that, in fact, for Git, actually you don't need to do any kind of configuration. So again, if I go to this Azure job which I had created earlier, and if I go to configure page, If you see here, Git and Subversion, these two are the plugins for which will be pre-installed when you start working with Jenkins. These are the default plugins. Anything else, let's say you want to work with Accurev, TFS, or any other such tools, you need to make sure that you need to install the plugin for those, and you need to do the configuration changes respectively for the tools before you start working with those. But Git is kind of pre-installed. Similarly, if I come here and click on add build step, as you can see here, Ant, Gradle, and Maven, these three Java build tools are pre-installed on my Jenkins master. So these are again all default plugins which are there in Jenkins the moment you install it for the first time. So if I click on invoke top level Maven targets, what will happen if you see here, it tells me, it gives me the details of the goal. However, there is one thing is missing. You just keep this screen handy and we'll come back to it. So as of now, I'll remove this page. Let's go to manage Jenkins section and click on global tool configuration. This is kind of the place where you put your environmental variables for Jenkins. And if you see here, Git is already installed. The name is default. Path to executable is Git. So typically no change to be required to be done on it. If you want, you can change the default name to something else, something you like. But even if you keep it, it doesn't make a difference at all to your actual working of Jenkins jobs. JDK installation. Again, we have one JDK already available. So I just need to put the name, and this name I can put anything. I can put JDK, let's say 10 maybe, as it is JDK SE Development 10 Kit. If you see here, I can tell Jenkins which JDK I want to be installed. So I'll stick to the default one, which is kind of the latest one. And if you see here, I have checked this install automatically button. If I don't use it, it will ask me for a Java_home. So this you will use when you have JDK installed on your Jenkins master already. You just need to show the path. If it is not installed, just click on install automatically, and just again, it will just select from the drop down which JDK version you want to be installed. So since JDK 10 is the highest version, I will go ahead with installation of 10. Similarly, I go to Maven, I click on add Maven. So this time it is asking me for the name. So let's say I give the name as Maven 3. I click on install automatically and I select the version. So let's stick with the latest version. Now, Jenkins does not stop you from installing different versions of Maven or different versions of JDK as well. So let's say I want to have Maven 3 and Maven 2 as well, let's say. So I just need to click on add Maven again. Let's say I give this name as Maven 2. Install automatically, I want to keep it checked. Again, if I had Maven executables already on my machine, I just need to uncheck this box and give the Maven home where my binaries are located. Since I don't have that, I just click on install automatically. I use the drop down to, let's say, install the last version of 2.2. So 2.2.1 is the version. So I have 2 Mavens now available on my system, or at least it will be available after the next restart. So now I just need to click on save and come out of the screen. Now, once that is done, if I go to the main Jenkins page and if I go to this Azure configuration page for the job, Jenkins would not make a difference because I have not made any changes over there. I just need to select and give the URL. That's all I need to do. But when it comes to build steps, once I select this top level Maven targets, if you see here, this Maven version was not coming before. And now if I click on the drop down, I have two options, Maven 3 and Maven 2, as we have defined in the configuration page, global tools configuration. So let's say I stick to Maven 3, and in the goals, I can mention multiple things, all the Maven goals like test and compile and build and all those options, package. So we have 6 or 7 different goals available for Maven, which we will take a look and we will understand each one of them in just a bit. So that's all from the configuration perspective. That's all you need to do. So I just click on save again and come out of the page, and let's see what do we have got next. So the next section talks about polling source code changes periodically. So this way you can configure Jenkins to poll source code changes. So what will happen is, this is one of the kind of efficient, not to waste time on keep on checking your source code management tool. So what happens, you are basically telling Jenkins that to poll the source code repository changes, and you have actually different ways of doing it. So you can tell Jenkins to check the source code management repository, or the repository which you have mentioned as your source, let's say 180 seconds, or you can tell them to manage, based on a schedule. So every second Saturday or every Friday or every Sunday, every single day at a specific time. So this is something which you can define in a very flexible manner to work with your source code changes. Once you do that, it will actually make your Jenkins server even smarter. How to configure? Again, you need to go to the configuration page of the project, the page which we are going over and over again, and click on build triggers. Basically go to the build triggers section. It will be available already to you, and then just check poll SCM. So once you do check poll SCM, once you put a check mark over there, you will actually be given an option. There will be one box coming in, and this will be very similar if you have worked on Linux, how to work with cron tab. So cron is basically a utility in Linux which helps you again work with scheduled jobs. So it's in very similar fashion. If you see here, this is how it looks like. You are on the build trigger section. When you put a check mark, this box will appear, and you have to give the frequency, how you want or how frequently you want your source code tool to be triggered. So how does it look like? If you see here, then you can just go to Jenkins homepage. So one extra option will be available called polling log. So Jenkins will keep a log of how many times it has polled your source code management tool. So that way you will see that it is actually working at the back, because the build will be triggered only if there is any change to the repository. Otherwise, there will not be any change. So this will help you understand that yes, your polling is working. So if you click, this is how it looks like. So it will talk about the last polling and what was the result. So if there was any change, it will tell that build has been triggered. If it is not, so it will say no changes. So again, to verify that polling of source code repository works perfectly, you make some changes in your repository and then see how your builds are getting triggered or not. The polling log will also contain information about the source code changes and the builds trigger. Both will have that information. Not only that, it will have this git polling log as well. So this will actually show what exactly has been done and if there was any changes done on the git repository, and then based on that, it will actually go ahead and do the changes. So how does cron syntax looks like? So as we have spoken, cron is very similar to the cron in Linux. So polling schedule works in exactly the same way. So you have 5 different fields, you separate by tab, and this is how it looks like. And each tab indicates a specific thing. First star is the minute, the second one is hour, the third one is day, and fourth one is day of the month, and the fifth one is day of the week. So this gives you an example. So if you see 00 space star star star, so every day at midnight. If you use the second option, 0 and then 2-4, so it will trigger at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. every day, because you have mentioned star 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 next. So we have multiple examples actually of this. So before we move ahead, let's take a look at how triggering works in Jenkins. So once again, I'm on my Jenkins page, and let's go to the configuration page of this job. And if we go to the build trigger sections, if you see here on screen, so this is what we were talking about. And you have multiple options. The one which we are interested in is this poll SCM option. And the moment you click and the moment you put a check mark over here, actually gives you the options to put the schedule. And as we have spoken before, Jenkins has got this question mark. If you click on this, it will give you a bunch of information about that particular option. So if you click on this question mark, it will tell you how exactly you should put these details. And if you see here, it talks about the configuration and the cron tab entries and everything. And then it tells you some of the examples. It shows how exactly you should write a cron tab entry, or how should you schedule the poll which you're talking about. So in my case, what I'm going to do is I'll put star, 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 and a star, which would mean if I put a tab here, actually, if I put a tab, and if you see here, it gives me a yellow warning. It tells me that do you really mean every minute when you say star, 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 star? Perhaps you meant H and then 4 stars to poll once per hour. So it is basically reminding me or telling me that this will actually poll every minute. Do you really want to do that? Normally you do not want to do that because that is too frequent. So basically you will put maybe hourly or once in a day or once in a couple of hours. That's what you will do. But in my case, I want to show you the demo. So I will stick to this option. And what I'm going to do is I just click on save. And now as you can see here, the polling log option comes here. And it tells me that polling has not run yet. So we'll wait for maybe a minute to see the changes. So as you can see here, since it was not a single run, so first time it has run successfully because there was a change. According to Jenkins, there was a change because it had not run even once. So it tells me that it started by an SCM change, building on master in workspace so-and-so, and finished as success. Again, there has nothing been done because there is no repository mentioned. There are no build steps, but this still shows as success. And if I go back to project and if I click on polling logs, it tells me started on October 18, no existing builds, scheduling a new one, done, took 0 milliseconds, changes found. So 7:16 p.m. was the time. If I click on polling log again, so maybe we have to wait for another minute. So for the next one, should not bring any changes here. So the second polling should not trigger any this Jenkins job. So if I refresh this, okay, so it's basically installing the JDK. Again, It has installed the JDK, but it is telling that poll SCM changes on master and no changes. So this time, that is the reason it has not triggered any new job, and we still have only one build of this job. So that's how your polling changes works. You can come back to it again and again, and you can see, if you see here, this time it tells me took 2 milliseconds, done, no changes. Polling SCM changes on master, and 7:18 is the time showing. So 16 it started, and then 18, and then it will go on. Every minute it will check, but it will trigger the build only if there is any change to the job. So what I can do is actually, in order to remove this overhead, unnecessary overhead to my Jenkins master, I can simply remove this polling SCM. Now, similar to this polling SCM, we have this option of build periodically as well. And as soon as I remove that polling SCM thing, it will remove the polling log option as well from this job. So that's where Jenkins will do the work for you already. So next we have in the list is, there is a small demo which we'll show to see how to create a Java job, which is using Maven as a build tool, and how do we work on it. How do we create the job and how do we run it on Jenkins master? So process is very straightforward. You just click on create a Maven job, you create a new job. That's all you need to do. Then select freestyle project. You can actually select Maven as well, but freestyle is the one which will stick to it for the time being at least. You can give any name. As per the screenshot, we will give Maven-project name, and then it will choose freestyle. Then the moment you click on OK, it will take you to the configuration page. So you give a source code repository, then you give the Maven version, and then you give the Maven goals, what goals you are trying to perform. So you're trying to clean, you're trying to install, package, build, test, compile, all these options you can specify. And you can specify one by one, and you can specify all of them or just one of them. That's up to you how you want to go ahead with it. So these are the goals available for Maven build. And if we talk about one by one, validate will actually, it validates if the project is correct and if all the necessary information is available for that project or not. Compile, as you can expect, it compiles the source code of the project. Similarly, test, if you mention, it will test the compiled source code using suitable framework. If you mention package, it will convert the compiled code into distributable format. So for example, if it is, let's say, Java based project, it will basically create a jar file or a var file based on what you have configured in a pom.xml file. Then if you want, you can verify with the help of verify command. It will run checks to ensure quality criteria are met. If you use install, it will install the package into a local repository. So that is again one of the ways to test it as well. If you want to use Maven deploy, it will copy the final package to share with developers and others. So all these options are available in Maven, and we will work with some of them, if not all. And once you do that, you should be able to see the Jenkins job which you have created. If you see the third job, it's showing as Maven project. It is showing as 23 minutes as per this screenshot. When we took the screenshot, it was created 23 minutes ago. And since this is red, so due to some or the other reason, the last build was a failure. And once that is done, you can just go ahead and build and execute the project. So let's create a new item this time. Give the name as Maven project, freestyle project, click on OK. What I will do is, I have in my repository, there is a sample Maven project, which I have done already. So test dev is the one which we will be using. And if you see here, it has got pom.xml file, which contains a lot of information about the project. So if you see here, it has got all the information about the project. And if I go back, okay, what I can do is just click on this green button, clone or download, to get the source code location, copy that, go to my project back again. Once I select Git, it will give me an option to give the repository URL. This is where I paste my repository. And the moment I hit tab, what will happen is Jenkins will check the connectivity with this repository URL. And if everything goes well, if it is able to connect, it will simply move forward. Otherwise, it will throw you an error message with a red showing that it is not able to connect or something like that. So that way you will understand that the connectivity is not correct. Jenkins is not able to reach the URL. So this project is bound to fail when you build it. So better you fix it now. So once you have given the source code repository location, the next option would be to add some build steps. Over here, of course, we need to choose this invoke top level Maven targets. And if you remember from the previous example, we used this global tool configuration to set up Maven 2 and Maven 3. So let's stick with Maven 3 and let's give one or two of the goals of Maven So you can define multiple goals in the same box. So let's say I do a compile and then I want to do a test, and let's say I then want to do a package, or maybe we just stick to compile and test. Once that is done, I just need to click on save. I'm not going ahead with any of the post build actions at the moment. However, I do have options actually. If I want, I can do a use a Git publisher. I can archive the artifacts. I can build other projects with this project as well. I can use the upstream, downstream projects to build it. I can send email notifications, editable email notifications. So these are the multiple options which we get when we are using post build actions. As of now, we don't need any one of them. I just click on save. And once this is done, the only thing I need to do is click on build now. It will initiate a new build of this project. As you can see, it is happening. If I click on console output, this will give me some live data to understand what is going on at the moment. So if you see here, cloning of the repository is done already. It has started Maven compile, if you see here, and test as well. So first it will compile and then it will test. It has done successfully and pretty quickly. So if you see here, now we don't have any actual sources to compile here. So it tells me no sources to compile and all, but basically it tried to do everything. So if you have the actual compilation code and actual tests to run, even here if you see, no tests to run. That is the reason it happened so quickly. But when we work with an actual project, it takes maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do all the compilation and testing to complete. So it shows me success. And if I go back to my Maven project, as you can see here, it is blue, which means it is a success. If I go to Jenkins homepage, I can see my Maven project here as well. The last success was 1 minute ago, and it's only one iteration has been done. I can just go back to the project, click on build now again, and it will just trigger the second build immediately. This will be much quicker this time. Again, I can go and check. You see here, again, the build has been successful. So we have come to an end of this module, and we have spoken about introduction and installation of plugins in Jenkins. We saw how to install and remove the plugins. Then we spoke about some of the most commonly used plugins in Jenkins. Then we saw how Jenkins works with a Java-based project or a Java project which is using Git as a source code management tool and Maven as a build tool for its purpose. And remember, if you are working with Maven, you need to have pom.xml, one of the files which has got all the instructions with regards to compilation with Maven. And then we spoke about how do we configure Jenkins to check for source code changes with the help of that poll SCM option. We do have a lot of other options when it comes to build triggers. And then finally, we worked with Maven builds. We created a very small demo, a very small project of Maven, and we saw how we compile and test a Maven project. Thank you for watching, and see you in